Meeting to order and declare open council meeting, policy committee meetings for the 7th of August 2018. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear is given. The area is deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Do we have any apologies for absence? Councillor Taylor, will someone move that apology, please? Second, thanks, Councillor. Move to Councillor Miletto, second, Councillor. All in favour?
Aye.
Against. Thank you very much.
Councillor Turner.
Oh, Councillor Turner, is he?
Is he?
No, we haven't got one. He might be just running late. Sorry, Councillor Turner's an apology too. So you'll move both of those?
Yeah, I'll second that one.
Councillor Prevotera, you're happy to? Turner and Councillor Taylor moved. Councillor.
One half here anyway.
Second, Councillor Prevotera. Okay. Now, just before I go into giving the rest of the rules, Mark, I just may get you to introduce our new member of staff in her second day here at Orange City Council and nearly got snowed in this morning.
Indeed. I'm very pleased to welcome Samantha Freeman to our council as the new Manager of Corporate Governance. I think everyone received some information about Samantha's background. Very highly qualified with a lot of experience working with local government. Make a significant contribution to corporate governance in Orange. Welcome, Samantha.
On behalf of all the council, Samantha, welcome, and I hope you find your employment and time here productive. I'm sure you will, and we look forward to working closely with you, so welcome. Live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use the appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes and will be available to councils. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who may be present. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting? Councillor Prevotera.
Conflict of interest, non-pecuniary, as I'm an employee of a state-owned network owner. That's item 4.3 in the General Council.
Thanks, Councillor Prevotera. Did you note that? Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 2.4. It's not in the General Council meeting, but in the Services Policy Committee meeting, item 2.4 in regard to Central West Libraries. As my wife is an employee of Orange City Library, I consider it to be non-significant and non-pecuniary, and I will be staying in the chamber, but I wish to have that interest.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. Councillor McRae, then Councillor Whitten.
I would like to declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in relation to the matters of the Cultural Heritage Committee minutes relating to the Heritage Manual and fact sheets. It's pretty minimal in terms of I'm a part owner of a building that's listed in that and relates to the heritage study.
Councillor McRae. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 2.6 of the Services Committee. It mentions in the World War I Centenary Committee that OCTEC will be aiding and donating our services from the Town Hall building, and I'm the chairman of OCTEC.
I declare a non-significant non-significant interest in that also, as I'm on the OCTEC board.
And as
Noble
a
Councillor
senior staff
Nugent.
member, I'd like to also declare an interest in that item, which I had missed. Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Did you get all those?
It'll be quick
Good on you,
tonight.
thanks. There are no mayoral minutes. There are no speakers for the open forum, I believe. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 17th
Move the
of
minutes.
And
July. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. The council now adjourns for the conduct of the policy committees. And first of all, I'll call on Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee, Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll open the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee at 7:06, and item 1.1 is declarations of pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, and less than significant non-pecuniary interest. Ready? Being none, I'll move on to item 2.1, minutes of the Sister Cities Community Committee, 27th of June 2018.
move the minutes.
Second it.
Moved by Councillor Romano, seconded by Councillor Munro.
Just asked, oh, sorry.
Lato.
I could just make a comment in regards to that Sister Cities Community Committee. On the 22nd of August at 6:45 p.m, the Rotary Club of Orange are holding a night for Kokoda, the Spirit Lives. So if there's any councillor or if they know anybody who would like to attend, it's a fundraising event for our sister cities. I'd just like to bring to your attention that it's on that night, so if you'd like to attend, please do so.
Or can
Raise
I,
money.
what was the date of that, Councillor?
It is Wednesday the 22nd of August at 6:45 at the Odeon Cinemas here in Orange. Tickets can be purchased from Chris Grillis Real Estate or Collins Bookstores here in Orange.
Thank you,
I have no
Councillor
particular
Lato.
interest in any of those.
Mr Mayor, look, if I just may, just a couple of things on Timaru. I think it's an excellent idea that they're trying to get a visit up through the high school students with Timaru. As you know, Timaru have been here in the last 7 or 8 months, a couple of councillors and their director of different titles, but director of economic development been here. So I think that's very, very timely. Look, just one question here, and perhaps it is to go back to the Sister Cities Committee. They don't seem to do anything Orange, California. Perhaps is it time to review that and maybe looking at some sort of sister city relationship somewhere else? Because I think the last thing that I know, Councillor Romano dropped in there, 8 years ago?
2009 or 10, I think. 10.
And I think since I've been 27 years, I can't remember us having any meetings or anyone visit us or anyone going over there or anything. So
That was discussed at the last meeting, and we've agreed to have a workshop in Bali to discuss it in further.
Not at the moment, we're not.
I think that's a very good idea. Thank you.
Mayor, for approval,
Just to follow on what
Councillor
Councillor
Duffy.
Lato said and Councillor Kidd, the issue with the chair of the Sister Cities has a link with Orange, California. I think that's going to be explored a bit. But the committee itself has asked for some guidance with the change of its policy, have a look at the policy committee or the policy of the sister cities and those type of things there. And there's a bit of oomph there now within some of the new members there that want to make things happen and they want to go about the right way. That's my thing.
Good.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. There'll be no further speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried. Item 2.2 is a minute of the Economic Development Community Committee meeting.
Move
Held
the,
on 18th of June. It's been moved by Councillor Nugent. I'll second that for discussion.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I think
Mr Mayor, I got a pay rise.
the best thing in here I think is fantastic to see the scout camp come over. This is quite significant. I think it's a great site out there. It's a lot of land and being right next to the lake, and it's got accommodation, bunk type accommodation and tent accommodation and bonfire or cooking. I think now that we've got this agreement in there, I think it opens up for a lot of future prospects in that mountain precinct, Lake Nobilis, cycling, a whole range of areas for accommodation. It is a shame because it's unfortunately in the scouting movement, don't get a real lot of kids going in now, whether it's young men or young women. Cause a struggle with them. There's a fantastic flying fox out there that would be way to go on if it was addition. So I think this presents a terrific opportunity to get schools involved out there, sports committee, other activities out there where it was a bit difficult previously. That's number one. Number two, can we get any feedback? Has there been any further interest or anything on a caravan park?
I could probably ask Mr. Redmond to give an update on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've got a report to council earlier in the year to go out to expressions of interest. So we're just tidying up a subdivision on the site and prepare the documents to go out to market. The answer is we're still getting calls on it from a few different parties. I'm keen to lodge an expression of interest.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've just got a couple
Duffy.
of follow-up questions, and one of them I want to tag what we just spoke about there is in the caravan park. I want to tag that in closed. I've got a couple of questions I want to ask on that. Maybe when we go into the council committee. But I just want to follow up on. I went through all your charter and all your things there, but I just wonder whether the Economic Development Committee looks at the impact of, say, the DPI moving from where it is to the new place and what it impact on the business houses on the bottom end of town as far as food goes, and the same with the food court coming into Myers. What impact will that have on that? I did notice, and we did all probably did see the news that Orange is the second highest bankruptcy rate. I believe that a lot of people have said to us that, have said to me, sorry, I won't say us, that they said their business is going to drop 25% when the DPI moves. And I'd imagine if there's a huge food court in the middle of town, I would think that the top end of town would be affected as well. So I'm just wondering, does the Economic Development Committee have a look at those situations, and will they commission a report? And if they haven't, will they add it to their agenda?
I'm certainly we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting, Councillor Duffy. But I suppose Council's role is to approve of development applications and those types of things. We're not in the business of telling businesses where they should move to. That's a bit difficult, that one. But certainly we should know what the impacts are going to be when different businesses, apartments move around.
I'm off from the South Sydney player.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Mr. Chair.
Councillor Hamling.
I just wanted to go back on what Councillor Kidd said about the Scout Camp. It's underutilised, and let's hope we can get some more user groups out there, either being conferences or businesses wanting to come together as a group and bind up and tell each other how good they are, then go back and do more productivity or whatever.
Kumbaya days.
Kumbaya, that's it. Just a question about the Qantas pilot academy, where it says here they wanted to know the future infrastructure and capacity of the airport. Concerning in what way did they want to know what we are doing with the airport, or what's that got to do with?
I'll refer that to the General Manager, Mr. Burdak. I know the answer to that.
Need to take that on.
I might be able to answer that. I think if you read one of those reports that came out, there could be further developments in training. They may not be looking at just...
I just wanted to know what they meant by why we weren't...
Oh, sorry, yeah.
There's a lengthy explanation to that. Provide a memo or probably sort of thing.
Agree with that? Any further speakers? There being no further speakers, I'll put that motion. All in favour?
Aye.
And I'll close the meeting at 7:15. Call upon Councillor Romano to do the policy structure and committee.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting of August 2018 at 7:15. Now we move on to declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? We'll move on to section 2, general reports, item 2.1, current works.
Second it, Mr. Chair.
Action on page 5, and it's moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Munro.
Look,
Is
I
there
might,
any discussion?
if I may, just bring one up. Director Cummins saw me late this afternoon, and water is flowing into
Great news.
only over perhaps 25 to 30 mil of rain. Certainly springs are starting to run with, so that means there's running in there is coming off. Creeks that come in. Good sign. Good start.
Yeah, there was a segment on the news, I think Sydney News, last night, where it showed that the drain was full down this side of town. They were saying that we were a bit luckier than others that had a fair bit of rainfall. So, any further discussion on this item? Duffy, how could I forget you?
I've got a number of things that I want to talk about. The first one is the Councillor Taylor in the chamber last week, of the last meeting, we discussed the issue of wood. I did notice we did some in the business paper there. We did some clean-up site on Ophir Road, which I go past each day, and I noticed about 5 or 6 large logs there that are absolutely dead and could be easily chopped up. And I was just wondering, hope someone coming back a bit later on to take them out to the acquired designated area at the waste management place, I would tend to think, or hope. The next one I want to talk about is footpaths. I raised in this chamber here a couple of times ago about a lady falling over at Newstead. Nothing has happened about that, but I also was taken by a number of business houses in town at Anson Street, where a lady fell over there as well, an elderly lady fell over there as well, and they said to me they're doing it tough enough now without having something really rough, and it is really rough on the southern side of the Anson Street exit into that actually complex there. And I did notice in the bus run the other day that the kids are riding along Glenroy up there, and they're using the big bumps on the footpaths as BMX jumps. But I thought it was very initiative. I think just whether look at someone like that.
They're wearing helmets.
And the other one which is brought to us is the parking at the cafe, which I think we've got a DA in for, is the parking on the southern side of the tree there. They park there and it's in the road when service vehicles are turning into Clint Street there.
So Duffy, which cafe place?
Sorry? The Bing Street Cafe, yeah, down one we have a DA in on the moment. Yeah. But I also want to address the situation is I asked in the chamber as regards to what money we had for the Southern Feeder Road, and I just want a clarification of this. We've got 8.25 million, I think is what it is, and we've also only got 4.6 million. They're the two announced figures. One came. I mean, that's all we've got. We've got no extra and things like that. What does concern me is we've had poles and wires. We've got the Snowy River Mountain scheme being sold for billions as well. And we've got Newcrest out the road, which is a state government, I don't care which one it is, they collected $2 billion or more from royalties. And we haven't got all that much, or we don't seem to have all that much. But we got the road to Dubbo, and they've got well over $100 million for a bypass, which the council's not putting in a cent for. As I've sung Paul Toole's praises here in this chamber plenty of times of what's happening in Bathurst. You know, there's well over $100 million, $105 million just for that road work out of Bathurst out down there. And we're trying to do a southern feeder road, which is going to create jobs, it's going to create all those type of things there. And I just wonder whether we should actually be putting a bit of pressure on the parliamentarians to say, hey, listen, there's an election coming up, fellas. Let's have some money come our way, which really belongs to us. We virtually built the NDR up there. I think there was about $15 to $20 million came, but the other 30 came from the ratepayers of Orange. And it is, and we all know, it's a rate road. owned, virtually used by the by the state road. Just a couple of things to remember on what those are as far as what going anywhere and what should be coming to us. But the other one I want to ask a question on, and
is that a question, that one, or a political statement?
Mr. Chairman,
I'd
I'd like some answers on some of the questions. He keeps moving along, and I'd like to hear the answers to some.
Councillor Duffy.
But I want to ask the director through you, Mr. Chairman, as to what are we doing as a council as for the drought, as in the farmers who access water or something like that to give stock. Now, I did notice. Do we have a policy on what happens there? Maybe could we have a report come to the council at the next meeting, because some councillors, some farmers in our LGA and probably on the outskirts of LGA, you go past many a dam and they're virtually at the slime at the bottom of it up there. And we had most of the areas around didn't have the 26 mil in town like the town got. Around, if you go around the other areas, they only had 10 to 12 and all those type of things there, which is not much. I'm just wondering whether we can have a report come to water. Because I usually don't criticise MPs in this chamber, ever. I never ever criticise Councillor Turner. I never ever criticised our local federal member Cobb. I never ever criticised Paul Toole or some of those fellows. I've mainly sung their praise when they've given us something and those type of things because they're hindered. But I was extremely disappointed when John Barilaro criticised our local member, who I didn't vote for, and rest assured I didn't vote for donating his money, his express money, to the Farming Federation, because we had people in our own area. We had people in our own area here. The lady Rebecca Childs ran, this is important, Mr. Chairman, ran a fundraiser which raised thousands of dollars to go towards the farmers. And Marie Statham, the former Mayor of Lithgow, and she's still a councillor, has taken up the same challenge down there. We had a four-year kid in Sydney who has links to the Central West here, who was hoping to raise $20,000. He's raised $100,000. And our local member gets accused of being grandstanding.
Councillor
I think
Duffy,
it's wrong, Mr. Chairman, and Eden Monaro should do the right thing by us.
Councillor Duffy, I think that's more political than council issues. So, I thank you for your concerns. Councillor Miletto.
I don't know what to say after that, but anyway, my comment is just following on from what Councillor Duffy said regarding water. And the reason I raised this issue is because I was approached by a member of the public who was a farmer earlier this week, and his question was to me: is there any way that council may be able to assist farmers, primary producers, or orchardists with regards to the supply of water to fill those 1,000 litre
puddles?
Yes, which they take around. I know that
IBCs.
I know that we do have a facility out in town, but that isn't known to everybody. So I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity for council to promote that service where these farmers or primary producers, orchardists can go and fill up their containers, because as we all know, they are struggling at the moment. They're having trouble getting some water into their troughs, their tanks. But it is available, but there are a lot of people who are aware of that. So we can perhaps promote that in a positive way. I think it'll go a long way to easing some concerns which some people may have.
I'll just a moment, Councillor Munro. I just want to get a response from the General Manager on Councillor Miletto's comments.
Certainly during the last drought, we provided
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can speak into the microphone.
Certainly during the last drought, we provided a standpipe supply near the depot, where we did make available water for farmers for domestic purposes. Typically, farmers would come in with the 1,000 litre tenders, take advantage of that.
Follow up with that. Will that come from the director or report come back to the next council statement what we provided? I think it's important.
It could well be within our fees and charges already. If it is, I'll just issue a memo. If it's not, I'll bring a report back.
Councillor Munro.
Sorry, just so it's clear in my mind.
Councillor Munro, just to say, just give us Councillor Miletto a second crack at this. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Just so it's clear in my mind, are we saying that we're going to charge the farmers, the primary producers, and the orchardists for that water to fill up those containers? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'd have to check the fees and charges, but as I recall last time, it was either a trivial price or for free.
Yeah, my suggestion would be, if it needs a motion for next council meeting, is that council move a motion to provide that water free of charge, since we are doing it with other people in need as far as firewood and that are concerned. Certainly the drought is hitting hard and impacting, and I think for the amount of farmers, primary producers and orchardists in the immediate vicinity to Orange, I couldn't see that being a significant cost to council, the ratepayers of Orange.
So we'll issue a memo out of what's in fees and charges, and depending on what's in there, we might well bring a report back, or a council could put forward a motion.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Councillor Munro.
What I was going to ask, Mr Chair, do you have a report, or maybe it's already available, you could verbally tell us now, the $35 million pipeline out to Yeovil, going very, very well. The lead contractor that put in the Quarry River pipeline has nearly completed that, I think, by just going along that every week. Is there any idea when potable water will be available out there? I'm getting a lot of questions from my people around Cumnock and Yeovil friends, and when that would be available for those people. Will there be a standpipe? Or I know they're putting a new, just finishing a big tank there just at Cumnock. Will there be the availability to be able to pull that out for know that where they're up to as far as the actual water flow?
So the actual commissioning of the pipe will commence in November, and they're just waiting on some stop valves to come through, some pressure reducing valves to come through to fix up an issue that they have on the Central Tablelands water section of the pipeline.
I wonder if there's a way of maybe putting a bit of pressure on, because there is pressure on those farmers that do need that, and that's what was put there for. Understand it can't be built more quicker than it can be built, but there is an urgency right now for that potable water. What was put there, I wonder if there's an updated timeline because of that pressure. First started, of course, that pressure wasn't there, but the need certainly is there now, and when it gets into the warmer months, it wouldn't want to be delayed into December, January. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it won't be delayed into December, January. The pressure reducing valves are on order from overseas. They will arrive in September, be installed in October, and the whole pipeline will be commissioned in November.
It'll be a great advantage to the people of that area, and it's that's what government should be doing. Structure like that. So,
just a point of clarification, which may help. Out at Huntley Berry Farm,
yep,
they are allowing anyone to come out there and get that's good spring water, and that's been tested. Household. But be careful when we start from waterway. I'm not against that, but there's a difference between potable water, standpipe water for livestock. Got to be careful that you're not saying people come and get this water and take it back to their households and put it through their washing machines. Using it for cooking. A household, that's what potable water is for. So there's a few other issues to actually look at. Bathurst, to come in as long as they're within their LGA and get water tanks and troughs, and I would suggest have to check with Cabon maybe doing the same, but if Cabon aren't doing the same, we should be service available to residents that live in the Cabon area.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just through the chair as well, downstream of Suma Park Dam, we do have environmental releases. Those obligations, even though we haven't had any inflow for some couple of 100 days, we have been releasing from Suma Park Dam every day to make up 1.5 megalitres of flow per day at the third crossing. So there is flow downstream of Suma Park Dam, those farmers downstream there.
Mr. Chair, most people wouldn't cart water for their stock. Most people would just cart water for their own use. It's very difficult when you got 100 cattle to try and water them out of the back of a ute or a small truck. Most people that have access to around this area have bore water or something like that. So I'm more thinking about the family use water for. So that's the important thing, to get that water to families so they can operate and have showers. You remember yourself when you were young, droughts, and you had to bath with after five other kids, and you had this much water. They're the things we've got to supply that's the important thing.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Councillor Hamming?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Just following on from Councillor Munro, that the pipe that's going out there and where we've put other pipes from here, does that go to the smaller centres and they get charged per so much water, or how does it work?
Yeah, so for
the Yeovil runs out of water, or what? We ship water out to there.
Well, for Orange City Council area, Summerhill, they're currently fed off bores, but with this new pipeline, we'll actually receive potable water going forward.
Free?
Not for free. It was always metered. Along with council's fees and charges. Yeah.
Okay, just another one, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but Councillor Duffy sort of said some words that hits a bit of a nail on the head. We're in a bit of a bubble here with the drought, really, but it's not until you actually go for a drive out around the far west areas, around Narromine and all that sort of thing, you can see the impact of this drought. And, if us having that 11 mil or how many mil of rain we had, it sort of gives you a sense false of security. So I think any way we can help around our area or further afield, we should be looking at, and I suppose the water situation is number one, and feed options. If we've got land that we could make fodder out of, I don't know. I saw an article where out at a regional airport, some regional airport around, they sowed some hay or whatever and started giving that to some of the farmers in need. So yeah, just stuff like that.
Well, I'd like to just make a comment on when you mentioned regional airports. I noticed that Orange Airport's got a fair bit of grass that may be cut and passed on. Perhaps we could look at that.
You can understand there's some...
Anyway.
Near the runway. It looks as though it adjoins the runway, so I'm just wondering whether that's something we could give away. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just following on from the pipeline from Carcoar, when it's good news that it's going to be hooked up in November. I think it's fantastic news. But what are our pumping rights out of that, our megalitre rights, or anything else? Is there just nothing, or is it just all reserve?
The pipeline to Carcoar is a two-way transfer. It's potable water, so it can support if Central Tablelands water are running short, or reverse of that if we're running short and there's the opportunity to transfer to us. Potable line,
but is it
two-way transfer opportunity.
Is it restricted in the amount that we can take, or?
I don't know that specific. I'd have to check that.
Well, that's good news.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nugent.
My other question is, could we have, I think it'd be, have it inclusive if Carcoar is going to come on and we've got access to it, an idea to have it in our list as what's available and what percentage is there?
Once it is available, absolutely.
Yep.
Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I've also got a question relating to water, a slightly different angle. Just looking at the water capacity or storage in Summa Park Dam at the moment, it's just fallen below 50%. Right here that there's some inflows going into Summa Park. Looking at the stormwater harvesting scheme, last financial year we harvested 153.3 megalitres and 35.78 in June, which is great. Biggest sort of contributor there to inflows, raw water source flowing into Summa Park Dam. I'm just wondering, is the stormwater harvesting program scheme operating at full capacity? Does that represent full capacity? And can we have a sort of brief a very brief explanation of the what are the triggers for operating the stormwater harvesting through you, Mr. Chair? Yeah, I thought it might be. So yeah, I'd be happy to take it as a briefing. Yep.
Very good.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. I thank councillors and conclude the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting. Time being 25 to 8. I call on Councillor Hamling to conduct the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee.
Yeah, the time being 7:36, I'll open the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting. I'll start with item 1.1, declaration of interest, significant non-pecuniary interests and less significant non-pecuniary interests. One of those. I'll move on to committee minutes. Item 2.1, page number 5, is the minutes of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee held on the 4th of July. Moved by Councillor Kidd. Seconded by Councillor Privatero. Any discussion? Councillor Nugent.
I'm not sure whether this is a point of order or a question. Point of order. Bottled water. Point of order.
Pot of water.
Sorry, talking too much about water. No. The Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee. I think if we look back to the charter of that committee, it actually reports through the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee. I'm sorry to be, sound like a jealous father and a prodigal daughter, but as far as I know, that is the case. I don't think it really matters. It comes to the same forum effectively, but just making a note of that.
We double check that and get it to the right parent committee.
Thank you. All right, otherwise you would have been able to stay in your seat. Thanks.
Any other discussion? No other discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Carried. Move on to general reports. Item 3.1, the Olympic Archery Requirement Report. Councillor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, I'd like to congratulate.
Move it first.
I'd like to move it and second it, Councillor Privatero.
Kit, all those, yep.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Maunder for a very, very good report on the archery. And I'd like to move the recommendation, but I'd also like to add a motion, if I may, to the council proceed with full feasibility for an indoor archery facility at the showground for further consideration of council. I think that the indoor archery is very important, considering the weather changes that we have in Orange.
Second.
So I would like to see the new shed, or what there is a more professional name for it, but it really is a shed.
Pavilion.
The pavilion. I'd like to see the pavilion priced up to include the additional lighting that's required and padding, and we've all got to be aware too that it's got to be used for other functions. So I'm hoping that cost-wise it will work out where we can, once we do padding inside or whatever's required for archery, that we can actually leave it there and still have your bird shows and everything else. But yeah, again, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Maunder on this report. It's fantastic, and I hope all the councillors support it.
So will that be a cost report, come back and all that sort of thing? Is that what we're... Yep.
My motion, has that been put clearly?
That's a part of it, yeah. Councillor Nugent.
Thank you. Look, just so we're speaking on a motion now, a new motion?
My understanding is that Councillor Romano moved the recommendation and added a part 2.
Yeah.
That a full feasibility for an indoor archery at showground be undertaken for consideration of.
I'm happy to support that motion if it's developing the idea of costings, but I do note that the Sport and Recreation Community Committee, which the chair has been going through a very extensive and long process of prioritising funding projects for future, and I'd like to think that once that costing is done, it would come back through the Sport and Recreation Community Committee in terms of priorities with other projects that are already on the table for and have been funded in terms of other sporting and recreation facilities.
Councillor McCray.
I might ask a question of Councillor Romano. Is the Showground Committee aware of the plans that, the suggestion that it be at the Showground?
No,
Through you, Mr. Chair.
not as far as I'm concerned, but they soon will be, and I can't see that anybody will have a problem with the pavilion being used for other activities. I mean, it's a lot of money that's been spent out there, and the option that we're being given, I think it makes a lot of sense to try and convert that to another area, another place that people can enjoy activities. And we've also got to bear in mind that it's about people coming to this beautiful city of ours and enjoying a weekend here and spending money in town and creating economic values. So as far as committee, the Showground Committee, I think they should be aware of it anyway if they've been following the council, because it hasn't come up just now. This archery discussion's been around since I think it was November last year, so I'm pretty sure they are aware.
If I may, as a second, look, I support it for two reasons. One is that I'd like to see greater use of the showground, of all the facilities out the showground, and in particular pavilion and outside. I think it's nice and central. Archery is a fairly popular sport, and I think that can be increased in Orange if we had the facilities. Just remind councillors that whilst we do planning sometimes, some things do come from left field and we consider them, and I'll remind you of that was rowing on the dam out here. In Ross-Wallaroy, it wasn't on our sites in any shape or form, and it was brought forward. Feasibility studies done, and we all agreed with it, and it's up and running, and it's been fantastic, and perhaps this is just the same.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the resolution, and especially the thing with regards to the costings of what it is, because one of the things we did set up early in the year and late last year, was the committee to look at having shovel-ready projects for us to go. And the big thing that we looked at was the sporting precinct, Wade Park, and other issues which we look at, and we're talking about this one now as regards to the archery, but we also have the HPV, which is a human-powered vehicle process, things like that. The reason why I also asked for the question at the previous council meeting was that we start the budget process early so we can budget for these things as well. So that's why we're coming up with the election next March. We may know something, and hopefully we'll know something by December or November what it's actually going to cost, so we can put it on the table to any political party to say, hey, listen, what are you going to give us? There's a lot of money out there as far as the poles and wires and all these type of things there. So we have to have shovel-ready projects going. The federal government are looking for them, and I'm pretty sure the state government are going to be looking. That's why I'm going to support it. You're going to have it, and I think it'll be a great asset for the showground as well.
Councillor Munro.
Yeah, you have my support as well for this. I think it's a wonderful concept, and it'd be wonderful to see a costing done to make that it happen. Room at the showground as well that to when they have functions there's no reason why sections couldn't be cordoned off at certain times for outside activities as well. Arrays don't go far; they're not like a bullet, so there can be safety and risk management put into that, so that it could be an outside activity as well as inside. So I think it's a great initiative, and Councillor Romano for actually bringing it up and suggesting it, because it is something that we need to get our youth into doing different things and get them away from their Walkmans and the rest of them and get outside and get a little bit active, and it builds into other things. So
Walkmans?
I don't know, whatever I'm going back to that. Whatever they have, their iPads and stuff,
At the point.
Talking about, but I just think anything to get kids motivated, You know, some of us councillors might be in the firing line if we don't watch it. So hopefully they're not real good shots.
I should be put.
Oh, I want to listen to this.
I'll put the motion.
Second it.
All those in favour. Sorry, hang on. Sorry, Councillor Pemberton.
No, it's been
all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. I just want to bring up one quick item before I left. Then I had the pleasure of presenting some sporting awards last Wednesday night down here at the Civic Theatre, and I just want to say we are very lucky to have an array of sports people in our city, junior, senior teams that are doing this city proud. So it was just interesting to see the different sports that got nominated, and it's pretty hard to beat the best number one 10-pin bowler in the world. So anyway, just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, a matter arising, which is what I spoke about as regards to where we at with the discussion with the sporting organisations as regards to the sporting precinct.
I've asked Mr. Moore to report to the next meeting on that.
I feel though there's been no discussion with myself or I know none with Councillor Romano. There's been no discussion with sporting clubs either as well.
Understanding what this was Wade Park, I can't answer the question on the broader thing, but there was some meetings and consultations that took place. I'm aware of timeline with the elections. I asked Mr. Moore.
It's very important that we have these things that are ready to go because we actually need it.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy, and I'll close the meeting at 7. All on.
Councillor Hamling, I'd like to open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting on 7th of August 2018 with the time being 7:47, about 5 minutes before we closed the last meeting, I think. 7:47. Okay. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? No. Okay, great. We'll move on to item 2.1, the minutes of the Companion Animal Community Committee of the 25th of June 2018. Moved. There is a recommendation on page 5. Do I have a mover? We do, with Councillor Duffy and seconded by Councillor Kidd. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
Our recommendation should include the action plan too.
Yeah.
The recommendation of the minutes perhaps could include the action plan too.
That the recommendation has two parts. The second part is that the action plan be noted.
Put it in the same.
Okay. So it's been moved to be second. Thanks for that observation. Any discussion on that item? No. Then I'll move. All those in favour of accepting that recommendation? Thank you. And you'll get an early mark and say there is a question over there from Councillor Munro. Yes, Councillor Munro.
I'd like to ask a question and can be taken on notice if that's okay. A good while ago I mentioned that cats are a problem in Orange. Walk around the parks, you see feathers everywhere and what have you. There's a hell of a lot of feral cats. As you may know, one kitten born today, in 5 years' time there'll be about 300,000 cats because they just breed and breed and breed. Now, if we could bring back a report, do we trap these cats? Are they microchipped? No, this is important because our wildlife is important. When you think of the amount of damage they do, be a domestic cat let out of a night, roaming 4 or 5 kilometres and back home. I think we need to put something in place where we monitor, trap and fine residents if their cat's outside eating, making right now. Up around my place, Whitten Road, there, tomcats are running around squealing, carrying on. You hear the dogs go crook. It's one of those things that need to be thought about seriously because not just wild cats but domestic cats be managed. We spent millions of dollars on all these beautiful wetlands. They're full of feral cats. What is the plan? Have we got a plan? Do we, and I just asked the question, how do we manage that?
We take that on notice and
report back next time, please, because I believe we should be doing some serious work on that and reduce the number of feral cats and domestic cats that haven't been tagged to be impounded those of if we need to be, because they are dangerous.
I prefer the Harry Butler.
Thanks, Councillor Munro.
They're not an asset, Orange.
I think a lot of people would agree with you, and particularly feral cats being an significant environmental issue. There certainly are arrangements in place to deal with domestic cats that might not be at home, and I'm sure that will be covered in the report. So thank you for raising the question. Yes, Councillor Romano.
I want to speak in support of Councillor Munro's point on the feral cats. There is a lot of feral cats living in the drains all over Orange, and I'm getting sick of being woken up by feral cats fighting at my window at night. So it's a great point, and I support that. If we can do something about feral cats that are living in drains and elsewhere,
and outside your window.
Yes,
as well.
And particularly ones outside my
particularly
window.
ones. And how do you know they're feral? Just
because I don't. How I know, I have actually seen these cats, and you can tell they do run straight into the gutters, into the drains. A lot of them have got fur missing off them and one eye, one paw.
Thanks, Councillor Murray, for that comment and observation. Yes, Councillor Duffy.
I just want to support Councillor Munro on that as well. I mean, unless a cat is a companion cat, I much prefer the Harry Butler situation. He looks under the rock and says, "Hey."
Sorry?
What?
I missed that, Councillor Duffy. I'm not sure what you're proposing there.
Some people will work it out.
Okay, Harry Butler. Okay.
I'm sure the Mayor knows.
Discussion on this item before we close the meeting? No? Then we will thank you, councillors, and that concludes Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee. The time being 7:52, and I call on Councillor McRae to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. I'd like to open the Finance Policy Committee of 7th of August 2018 with the time being 7:53. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? That is a no. We have item 2.1, requests for financial assistance.
Recommendation. Second the recommendation.
I think that was Councillor Whitten moved, Councillor Nugent seconded. The recommendation is on page 6. Any further discussion on this item? In that case, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Finance Policy Committee meeting with the time being 7:53 p.m. I call on Councillor Duffy to conduct the Services Policy Committee.
Less than a minute.
I know. How good's that?
Councillor McRae, and I now declare the Services Policy Committee meeting open at 7:54. And the declaration of pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest and less than significant non-pecuniary interest being none, we'll move on to, Councillor
Chair. Just to repeat, at the start of the meeting, an interest in item 2.4 and I think 2.6. Both are less than significant non-pecuniary interests, and I will be staying in the chamber. For the reasons mentioned at the start, my wife works at the library in relation to 2.4, and I work at Octec in relation to 2.6.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent.
Chairman, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest on item 2.6, as I'm the chairman of Octec, and we will be working with the committee in donating our services for World War I centenary activities.
I have a similar in 2.6.
I'd like to declare an interest in item 2.1, the Cultural Heritage Community Committee, less than significant and non-pecuniary. I will remain in the chamber, and it's related to an item of the Heritage Study C44.
Thank you, Councillor, for the declarations there. Just as a point of procedural matter, the General Manager, I declared at the start of the meeting, we only just have to acknowledge them, we don't have to repeat it. It's the benefit of all of us. Thank you, Councillor. We'll move on now to item 2.1.
Minutes.
I saw Councillor McRae declare an interest. He's remaining in the chamber.
I was an apology for that meeting. It's not there.
And it's the Cultural Heritage Committee community meeting. It's held on the 5th. There's
I'll move the...
been moved by Councillor Kidd.
recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Hamling. Any discussion?
Either.
No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Item 2.2, minutes of the Health Liaison Committee meeting on the 5th of June. Page 169, there's a recommendation. It's been moved. Seconded by Councillor McRae. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Can I just make a point here? It's interesting how things just sort of fly under the radar when we're talking about economic development. There's an interesting story earlier in the week. Dudley Private Hospital. $multi-million they're going to spend. $74. That's millions of dollars they're going to spend. New private hospital out. It's interesting. Unless it's hundreds of millions of dollars, 400 or 500 jobs, a lot of these things just go under the radar. Another one, I don't wonder how many people in here have noticed on the corner of Kite, opposite the Lands Office, Moxie's Farms and the Australian Dairy Financial Management staff are operating out of Orange. Hardly anything about it. I think all of those things are cumulative. Orange, not just one thing. We've got hospitals, we've got mining, we've got small business, we've got larger business, and a whole range of things. But a lot of things just seem to go later. That was one good example. That's dollars going to be movement financial branch of Moxie Farms, ADFL up there, is very significant to Orange.
Chair, can I just have a matter arising out of the health one, if that's all right? Just with the palliative care situation, we still haven't heard anything back from the Health Minister about any funding or anything like that yet? I was just seeing the recommendation number 1. I'm sure as part of the discussions with the Push for Palliative Committee, that was included in some discussion about when hopefully this palliative care unit is set up, maybe a training off that to train palliative care doctors and nurses as part of all that out there near the hospital. Yeah. So I'm hoping that we get a good response from Minister Hazzard because, we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary here. We're asking for a palliative care unit. So I know Dudley have come on board and I just hope that the Health Minister can come along because I think it's been nearly 6 weeks since he came up and had that meeting. I know he was on leave for a while, but I think he's back. So I think it's time we got an answer out of the Health Minister about palliative care either way.
Mr. Chair, look, I'd like to agree with the Mayor on his last statement as far as smaller businesses coming to Orange. He's absolutely right. You don't need to have a 500 job employer. You need to, as a council, I think. I mentioned it before, and I wonder if we could get a report on that as well, how we could advertise our beautiful city and what we have to industrial areas in Sydney and around the Western Sydney, as far as we need to build our Leewood, and we need to fill our Rambler, and we need to spend some more money up there to make it more attractive, and those 20 and 50, 80 sort of employment based businesses. Is there something you could I ask a question of staff to give us some information on how we can achieve that goal, as far as putting a little bit of money into advertising those places in those places?
Anyway, do that.
No, but how are we doing it? I don't know. So if please I could have some.
I can provide some feedback.
I could get some feedback or just a personal conversation, because it's so
It's a
important.
meeting with Tony Boland and
It's really
Stanley.
important that we promote our town, not only for massive encouragement of
Boys, because you said earlier we don't need them, but
well, we do need them. They're here, but what
Again,
we
it
need to
comes
do
our
is
way.
promote those smaller ones as well, and they're really the big employer. You get 50 of those is 500. So.
And provide some comment
you,
on
councillors.
what we're doing, if you would like me to. We're currently doing some work on a new investment website, which will be a standalone website. It will cover the Blaney-Cabon Orange region, so the new functional economic region under the Regional Economic Development Plan. And what we're looking at is how to design that in a way that targets specifically sectors that we want to see coming into Orange. So we'll be doing some work with the Economic Development Committee to identify the sorts of businesses that we want. Obviously in the CBD plan, there'd be additional work on strategies to attract particular types of businesses as part of the CBD revitalisation. So there's quite a bit of work going on, but it'll be maturing over the next 6 months, and we should be able to come back with some more definitive strategies for consideration of the council at that point.
Okay, councillors, the mover and the second are happy to include in there the item number 2, 3.1, with the recommendation over on page
69.
Second, happy with that, councillor? Yep. Okay, so I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Item 2.3.
Move the recommendation.
Moved by councillor Nugent, seconded
Second.
by councillor Miletto. Any discussion on 2.3?
Yeah, just one. It's over on page 199. It talks about toilet facilities at John Lomas Park. Can't recall ever seeing signage there that tells you where the loos are. Been asked that question, but it does say here in the report that got some arrangement that you can use the loos over at Busy's Cafe. Perhaps to get signs up there to let people know that, because I can tell you, I can't recall seeing any signs down there that tell you where a loo are, and you quite often see kids flying over the back into the creek.
I take that one on notice. That's recall going back a few years that there were signs and some sort of deal.
Someone's probably...
Memory, councillor Kidd, there is a discussion going on as regards to what the issue is with the report coming back to the committee. Councillor Miletto.
Sorry, it's probably not relevant to the Ageing and Access Community Committee, but with regards to signing, I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity out of Jack Rabin Parks to have some more distinct signing with regards to people with dogs who take them out there and exercise, and when the dogs decide to defecate on the ground, they don't clean it up. I know there's some areas in town where there are bags provided, and I know it shouldn't be a requirement that council provide bags to clean up dog droppings after them. But unfortunately, the last few weeks, people have been taking their dogs out there, especially on the western side of Jack Brabham Park, where the young children play, under sixes. The last couple of weeks, I've been required to clean the dog off the ground because children have fallen in it, which obviously upsets the parents and the poor children who actually fall in this. I think it's disgusting that people can't adhere to normal rules and regulations where they clean up after their own dogs. I would like to see council perhaps have some better signage out there requesting that people, or bring their attention that they clean up after their dogs if they want to take them out there and exercise, because it's not acceptable that little kids 6 years of age should be falling in dog droppings.
Dog loose free area, is it?
Ah.
Right, we are over for that.
Well,
People
walking
can
dogs.
walk. Sorry, when they're on leashes, you're talking.
I'm not sure whether the dogs are on leashes, but what I can tell you is that there are, every weekend when I go out there to set out up the little goalposts for the children, do a canvass of the grounds, and there's always dog droppings on there. But unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, a little 6-year-old boy, fell in it, had it all over his boots, on his hands, and I think it's what should be a pleasant experience playing a sport. Turns out like that, where he's got what on his hands and his boots, when people are too lazy to clean up after their own dog, when that shouldn't be the case.
I think perhaps, if I can suggest, I think that's where we do need a bit of media, sure for certain, because they only have to go another 300, 400 metres at the back of Bloomfield, and we've got all those leash-free areas out there for dogs and that. And you're quite correct. I've seen, particularly in the last 2 or 3 weeks, a number of people come flying. When I've been coming in from the airport, people on there with dogs, and certainly not on a leash or anything. So a bit of media in the paper, and perhaps your patrols by rangers out. Illegal to have.
The General Manager wishes to make a comment on that, but I also take it on board too that the same situation arises down at Wirrawina Oval as well.
Dog loose free area?
Yeah, but you've still got to clean up. That's why we provide bags at loose areas. We don't typically provide bags at non-loose. But given the circumstances you're describing, we probably will.
I think one of the things, if we put bags out there and a thing, that'll just encourage them to do it. They know that you can't do it. Rolled out there, our blokes to nick a few people.
Yeah, I understand and appreciate that, and I don't want to put everybody in the same basket, because there are people who go out there to watch their children play sport and do have the dogs on leash, and they're not the problem. You see people carrying bags, but there seems to be, during the week, people are taking dogs out there, and even if they are on leashes or unleashed, they're still letting the dogs defecate on the fields where children are required to play, and it's a unpleasant experience when little kids walk in that sort of thing or fall in it.
Well, we need to determine the recommendations 3.1 to 3.4 and 3.6 to 3 and 4.1 on the minutes as well.
Okay. So the normal protocol for this is it's as printed, unless a councillor has an alternate to it or wishes to move something different.
Moving second, happy with that? So I'm going to put any further discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. We move on now to item 2.4, which is
move that one.
Second.
By Councillor 2.4 Central West Libraries. Moved by Councillor McRae.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Kidd. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one, if I may. This came up last week in Sydney at the Country Mayors at the Inland Forum, and that's a decrease in funding. Libraries, major issue. I got unanimous support down there. All councils support the mission that's going into government, how important libraries are for a whole host of reasons. For older people to go and think. It's a social and gathering point for a lot of people now, and libraries are quite different to what they used to be if you look at our library. And it did get unanimous support to increase our our libraries, and the library is not a decrease. See the decrease in support or shifting.
Any further discussion?
Mr Mayor, sorry, is there something going to government? Yeah, there is.
There already is, but hopefully I got this while this council. I spoke on your behalf. I was quite sure that no one would support us putting down all the councils, every single council. I think the current chairperson and actually.
Okay, any further discussion, councillors? Being no further discussion, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. We move on now to 2.5, which is the minutes of the Lucknow Community Committee. We have a mover and a second.
I'll
Move
move.
Councillor Nugent, seconded Councillor Pravateria. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Item 2.6, I believe, do we have any Centenary Committee? Been moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Whitten. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
And that brings to a close the Services Policy Agenda meeting, and now I call upon the Mayor to continue the meeting.
Item 4 are notices of motions, stroke notices of rescission. Four point one is notice of motion uptake on hot mix plant. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to change the motion, if I may, to the motion to be prepare a business case for the establishment of a hot mix asphalt plant in Orange. Second down.
Sorry, just read that out again, would you mind?
So it's to prepare. So I'd wish council to prepare a business case for the establishment of a hot mix asphalt plant, Orange. Get a seconder?
Seconder for discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hamling.
Mr Mayor, this has been a long time discussion for council over many years. In November last year, council unanimously supported an options paper to come back to council to look at a mixed facility in Orange. We've got a report back from the director, and I will say, to be fair on the director who's currently in the hot seat at the moment, he wasn't here at the time when this particular discussion was debated, and has been debated for many, many years. He's newly across this particular subject matter. But I read in the report here that one of the options was to look at bringing in an outside organisation to provide the facility. It looks like the discussions have gone on for some 9 months. It doesn't, from the way I read it, they probably are not going to take up that option. So I would prefer to work towards outcomes, to get an outcome straight away, where we can prepare the business case to establish the hot mix facility and the plant in Orange, to get this matter underway and resolved. Now, in the debate, there was some discussion about what the cost of the hot mix facility may be. Figures between $7 and $10 million. Now, my personal opinion, and there's 11 other councillors in the room, but my personal opinion is that I'm not particularly interested in building a facility that's going to service all of Rock region, and I know there's no Centrock anymore, but I'm more interested in finding out what it would cost to build a facility just to service Orange, right? So, and service that from our own depots with our own staff. Now, there's going to be a cost associated with it. You need to know what that cost is to facilitate that for the options that we're looking at. Either way, there's going to be a cost to the, if we were to bring in a private organ, or if there was to go to tender and bring a private organisation in, and they choose to build a hot mix facility in our beautiful city, they're going to do all endeavours to make as much money as they can selling their produce to as many bidders who want to have hot mix throughout the region. We would find ourselves in the same situation that we would be paying for that service anyway. Would be the material may not be available at the times that we need it, because they're going to be, if they're selling a lot of it to some other organisation who uses what we do, they're going to have first bite at the cherry. So my preferred option is, and the community, the support throughout the community for this particular matter is overwhelming. They do realise that there is going to be a cost. They also understand that the longevity of putting a road down made of hot mix and fixing roads made of hot mix is far more substantial and long lasting than the way that we're doing it at the moment. So yeah, they're fully supportive of it. They understand the maintenance costs. Whilst the cost of doing it may cost more, we save the money in maintenance from back and changing or replacing spray type material and the blue metal dust back into the potholes. I'll leave that under consideration for my esteemed colleagues.
Councillor Millett.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'd like to propose an amendment to your motion, that being that we look at it twofold. If it's only doing a cost assessment to devise this plant just for Orange, I would like to know what the comparison would be if set up, which could be utilised by people like councils like Cabon, because I'm wondering whether there's an opportunity to expand on the business which you're proposing. So I'd like to see your proposal, but I'd also like to see another one used to expand on that business service adjoining councils, if possible.
Second for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound as negative towards that. I think for the almost 17 years that I've been here, we've discussed this matter, and these options have all been thrown around and around, but we're still here talking about it. I would prefer to focus on the needs of Orange. And sure, in the business case, if there is the flexibility to modulise it and grow, then sure, we need to know about that. What are the benefits of... I think my preferred option is that let's focus on what we need to do for Orange. There is an option, and I'm sure the staff will put options in. When you do a business case, that's normal practice. And we can say, look, if we can start with stage 1, this will service the needs for Orange. Stage 2 is going to cost an extra 1 million, 2 million, 500,000, whatever. And that would then give us the option to on-sell product to other people.
Yeah, you're happy with that, Councillor Millett?
Well, I've been around the block. I've been around this subject a few times.
Just get a bit of order into it.
Slow it down.
I can appreciate that, but from a business perspective, I'm not quite sure whether your motion covers what I'm asking. And I know that the director has, the general manager has indicated that some things would be normally covered, but it's not clear to me what is going to be covered in the report, because you're going to be, I may be looking at this wrongly, but you seem to be looking clearly at Orange, and then I'm hearing some discussion, well, maybe we could look at other things, maybe covers a lot of things. I guess I'm fairly...
I'll make a suggestion then. Just try this, because if we don't, you're going to have to get a seconder, because you've got an amendment in the motion that the business report be done, and within that, as the general manager said, he can look at options, but we'll call it options just for Orange. Then he may have the next thing in there, and if this was expanded to cover...
That's what I'm asking.
Laney and Cowra, that's what he's saying do, and I think we can have that in the one motion. Councillor Whitten's indicated he's happy with that, but the prime one is to look at Orange.
Yeah.
If he comes back in the report and says, also it would cost another $1 million or whatever if it was expanded.
I suppose if I can make clear it up, Mr Mayor, the General Manager and the Director are going to do the business case for the best outcome for them. I would like to focus just on Orange, because they're going to say this is what we do if we just do Orange. But they're going to broaden the business case, and they're going to say these are the other opportunities. Just normal business case practice, they're going to do that.
So that...
And then we can say, look, that's too dear, we want to start just with this.
That fulfils your requirements. I think that fulfils your requirements. You're happy with that? So you've got a second, right? Councillor Hamley.
Just a quick question. Have we ever had a hot mix plant in Orange before?
Yes.
And we did. And do other cities do the same thing as well? Have hot mix plants?
Yes, they do. Through the chair. But generally, they only have a hot mix plant if they also run the quarry. It's your major input costs.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a question. In relation to staff comment on the original motion, I'd like to take the staff's advice in relation to these matters as much as possible. And staff have recommended that pursuing the opportunity for a private company to establish here in Orange would be the lowest risk. Councillor Whitten has speculated that that's probably not going to come to anything, because some time, maybe since November last year, but I'd like to ask basically, what is the prospect of that coming to able to be answered in this meeting?
Yes.
And secondly, if we proceed right away to develop a business case, and at the same time in parallel we're negotiating with another organisation, and that does come to fruition, how much time and energy are we going to lose in preparing a business case that may not actually go anywhere?
Just in that, I'll get the General Manager to give you some background on the discussions that have been held, where they are or not. Could I just say in the second one, I think second part of your question, look at the cost-benefit analysis if we're going down this track, Councillor Whitten suggesting. That's the impetus for someone flying in here saying, hey, we want that site, we're going to open one up. Well, quite worth the effort.
Okay, I'd suggest we continue with both of them concurrently. Of course, the amount of time it's taken to get to the point we're at with the private interest has been quite long. So I'd suggest we case for owner-operated one at the same time and evaluate that, get to that point and look at it. The central part of it is we've got a certain amount of asphalt that we buy every year, and I guess private interest does want to sell it more broadly, needs to establish a revenue stream for asphalt outside of Orange they want. And that analysis of the additional revenue stream is what's taking so long with that particular entity. It might well be a different case if we look at a smaller batch plant, does just Orange, but I'd suggest we're going to need to get to an end point on this sooner or later, so I'd suggest we do the two at the same time.
Councillor Milletta.
That was a point that I was going to make. I guess what my concern is, whilst I accept the councillor's motion, my fear is that if there is a potential investor on the horizon and we're looking at some other project, whether that might spook the investor. So I guess my point is that can we have some sort of timeline as to when we could receive a report back as suggested by Councillor Whitten, so both parties know where they stand?
I probably wouldn't provide a timeline right now. I'd like to consider whether staff do it or staff get someone to do a peer review on top of that, so that we're certain of our ground. And we'll certainly talk more to the private sector interest. So there may be one or two, I would gather.
How about we're meeting next Tuesday night again? So the General Manager could come back with some answers on that by next Tuesday. Okay, Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Ms Mayor. Look, I think it's a really interesting reasoning behind why we want to make sure we have our own hot mix plant so that we can make sure we meet our needs. Now, I understand it's about $1 million a year on asphalt. Is that the kind of number we're talking about? We would spend for Orange. I've seen that in one of the reports at some point.
About 5,000 tonnes.
1,800 tonne through to about 2,500 tonne.
There's a dollar figure roughly. Go out and set up a company, but
no, but it'd be less than $1 million.
It'd be less than $1 million. Okay, because I find it interesting that we're talking about being able to provide a facility that meets our needs, and the business case, being that what we need to spend to service the needs of our community, we can reduce cost to residents and have a more reliable service. But I wonder, does it provide an opportunity to consider other areas in which council might set up its own self-sufficient, funded by council, secure supply? And I actually think that this will relate to the next item on the agenda in terms of energy. If we're looking at that we spend $3.17 million a year on energy of council facilities, is there an opportunity using the same business case and the same argument? What would it cost for us to build or install appropriate energy generating infrastructure, which means we have control of our energy when we need it for our residents at a price that we're happy with, that we can control, which again, similar to the hot mix plant, provides a long-lasting solution, which I think, as Councillor Whitten said, it may cost more initially, but we have savings over time. And even if you just consider what it would be for the council energy costs, perhaps there's other opportunities to apply the same model of let's build our own and have control. Favour of the motion.
Councillor McRae. Councillor Duffy.
Chairman, I'm going to support this wholeheartedly because there's nowhere in any stage of form have I been told that the reason why we shouldn't have one or the reason why we should have one, and no costings have been done. I'd love to see the business case, what it's actually going to be. But I think just from memory, I think we've spent around about $8 million on the NDR with hot mix. Would that be correct? And all across from go to woe, right from the other end, with grants and all those type of things.
It's on notice. It's a pretty difficult one for the staff to answer now right off the bat.
It's up in the millions. That's an issue. But we've had, as someone said earlier, we've had discussions with people before. I mean, what's eventuated out of those discussions? We're talking about something that's 11 or 12 months old, and that's my concern. And I look forward to the business case to come to us and say, yes, this is what it is. This is what it's going to cost. And this is where it's going to benefit us. And I think it's a great opportunity, but I don't want to see the timeline be stretched out again.
All in favour? Against? Thank you. 4.2, notice of motion electricity prices. I think.
Tara's leaving the room.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Privateer.
Fault.
Right, Councillor Whitten.
Mr Mayor, the motion I'd like to put as printed.
Happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Mr Mayor, I put forward this motion to Council's consideration to go to the community and the business community and the residential community, whoever's interested in coming along. As I said before, I'm more interested in rather than having a talk fest, but to formalise outcomes. And this is a big issue. People might say, why are you taking up this issue as a council? But small things start, or big things start with small discussions. It's a popular well, I wouldn't say it's a popular discussion. It's a mainstream discussion in the media at the moment, to do with federal government discussions with the power suppliers about what they're charging us as consumers, both business and residential. The interesting fact of that is that the reason we find ourselves in this situation where businesses and residential are paying a lot of money out now in electricity or energy was actually put in place by government, and I won't say that it was this particular government because I don't really know the facts to that, but it was an issue for all governments when that they've actually sold off the industry and they're moving towards renewables. Now, renewables has its place, don't get me wrong. Probably everybody in this room that has solar panels on their home and reap the benefits from that. This is more about baseload power. Baseload power to supply and manufacturing. And an interesting discussion I had with a gentleman from another country who had a lot of manufacturing in this country was that when I discussed with that person about the reason why they were leaving this country, had nothing to do with the cost of labour. It all had everything to do with the fact that that once Australia came on board with the Paris Agreement, they knew straight away what that meant for them as manufacturers in this country. They wouldn't survive because of the target emissions that we had agreed to with the UN. So it's an interesting discussion when you do talk to people and look at their, or get their version of why manufacturing has gone to other countries. And we're seeing now that a lot of our resources are going to places like India and China, resources which are a bit hypocrisy. We're being told as Australians that we need to meet a particular emissions target by reducing the way that we use energy from resources that we have abundance of in this country, but they don't have a problem selling it to other countries, and they can build as many coal-powered stations as. And then this even gets worse. Like I don't know who wrote the script for this, but probably put Monty Python out of business. But actually sell it to them cheaper than what we can buy it back off them for. We sell it to them, they sell it back to us dearer than what we can get it cheaper out of the ground. So I know that's a bigger discussion, but this forum is about pulling together the entrepreneurial people of Orange, the business people of Orange, the residential people of Orange, the local community groups of Orange, putting and formulating and constructing something that we can go back to the leaders of this country and say, we're not happy about this. We're not happy about the cost of energy in this country. When we see the report from staff, a little bit of the background from the Grattan Institute where, pricing has gone up 130%. It's gone from $8 billion to $18 billion, and they've passed all of that onto us. Pass all of that onto businesses. We have to pay for it now. So you'll find that another interesting conversation is that we have two types of ideologies in the realm. And one is the globalist, which is more popular than the nationalist, where the globalists are more interested in what's happening in the global world rather than what's happening in their own country. We vote these people into this country to serve us, to protect us, give us jobs. They're more interested in doing what the other countries are asking them to do, give away our jobs, give away our resources, and we pay for it through the nose. So I hope I get the support from my colleagues here tonight, and I hope I get the support from the community. It's not going to be an easy job by no means. I won't even go anywhere because at the end of the day, if governments really wanted to fix this problem, they don't have meetings and talk to these people. They just make the rules and they say this is how it's going to be. So if they're really fair income, they just sign a bit of paper and say this is what price you will sell your energy to the community to. So I don't really think that they're that fair income, otherwise they would just do it.
Question, if I may. question. Was it a misquote? Can you give us who? On the ABC this morning, you were quoted as saying that there were manufacturing businesses in Oranges and businesses that are closed down because of electricity costs.
That's
Is that a misquote, or who are those
that's
businesses?
What's being told to me.
Who are the businesses?
I'm not going to talk about which businesses they are, but there are a number of businesses who are no longer, that have been in families for generations, no longer going to move forward.
I think sort of making those sort of quotes should come forward through to the council to make sure that we can check the veracity of them. Because I had 2 phone calls in here today asking who they were. They were very concerned about them. So I don't know of any manufacturing business in Orange that closed down because of electricity costs.
Well, Mr Mayor, there's a lot of statements made in this chamber that don't need the veracity of
No,
this
I just
council.
asked, it could be the ABC that are incorrect.
Not incorrect. That's what I said. Because I do know family businesses who are no longer going to be running their businesses. Because there are, in a business, you have to budget what your outgoing costs are going to be. When you don't know what your energy costs are going to be each year, then that's one major factor on why do I keep doing this.
And I just
The state government's going to move jobs offshore to India, like public servants jobs, like 200 of them in the transport sector, going to go to India. Because their argument is return on investment is better to have it done offshore than it is in this. They're public servants. We pay them, taxpayer. That's false economy. $1 spent in this community
I'll
turns
just put it
into
up there.
5.
You answered me first question we wanted. And did you get that copy of in the Herald on the weekend on hearing there, this NEG thing? There was a good article, 2-page article. And the energy plan needs clarity. Good articles there. Councillor McRae.
Councillor Whitten, I actually don't think your motion goes far enough. Motion is that Orange City Council work with the Orange Chamber of Commerce and or local organisations to test their interest. Holding a forum. Do you want a forum or not want a forum? Are we going to do something about it or are we not doing something about it? So I would suggest, and perhaps you might consider an amendment, remove the words to test their interest and change it. It's your motion. But I think if we're actually going to take action, you mentioned not having a talk fest. Rather than testing interest, we're either holding a forum or we're not, and we're taking action on electricity supply, electricity costs, energy generation. And council is a fairly big player in this. As I said before, we've got more than $3 million being spent on facilities that we provide to the community, including our sewer, our water, our aquatic centre. If we can actually figure out how to save the prices, I think that'd be a big thing for our community. So let's not just test the interest, let's actually hold the forum.
Well, I'm all supportive of that, Mr Mayor.
Okay, so just change the wording to that Orange City Council work with the Orange Chamber of Commerce, local organisations to hold a forum. And the rest is the same.
Regarding your question to Whitten on...
He's answered the question, thank you.
Yeah, no, on people retracting because of electricity prices, I can tell you personal experience. Get to a point where you get a bill. Jesus, can I employ this extra man? Okay, I'll work harder myself because I have to pay this bill. So when you talk about 100 small businesses with 2 or 3 people in it, and a bit of overtime you might give somebody to have a day off or something like that, twice about it because you know the electricity bill's coming next month. So I totally agree. You mightn't see this business just before it because of a electric bill, but you will see retraction of staff. Owners of businesses work harder to try and pay that, and they end up like a little mouse in a wheel, going around and around and around, and working 80 hours a week. Try and pay the bills, and that's the sad part. You go back to the 80s when 90s when electricity was fairly cheap and affordable for industry and small business. Put that extra bloke on and go away for a weekend. I've been in business for 36 years. I know exponential increases in electricity have had a massive input in small business, especially small business. Large business may be able to absorb it. Small business cannot. It becomes a crunch time when Bill says, and then the employer just says, look, bugger it, I'll go get a job, like I did. So from hand up, it was one of the factors why I decided to get out of retailing, go and do something else, play with my farm, do other things. I'm lucky because I've been able to do what I want out of life through retail, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of retailers out there that really think about what they're going to be able to full-time employ. So when you talk about employment, talk to, if anyone's talking to anyone in federal government or state government, they want jobs and real economic strength in this country. It comes from small business. Small business is the biggest employer in Australia. You take away 2% of those workers out of small business because of an extra bill, whatever, it's a massive amount of people not working. So does have a lot of credibility what he says. Personal experience, I can't sit here and just be quiet about it. So excuse me if I'm going on a bit, but I know that message through. So I fully support a forum. Mightn't do any good, as you say, but we've got to be the squeaky wheel. We stand up as a council. Other councils may stand up, and we're a united voice. Politicians listen to numbers. They listen to.
Okay. All in favour? Sorry, Councillor Nugent.
Yes, I'd like to speak. I'm going to support Councillor Whitten's motion, but perhaps for slightly different reasons than Councillor Whitten has conveyed in his speech. My starting point is that governments at all levels should look at what they can do to support business and to support people who are disadvantaged to be able to live in comfort and safety without facing energy costs that they can't afford. I think that's a given. The main causes of the energy price increases that we've experienced over the last 10 years, which I think are covered well in the background and staff comments here, and probably more eloquently than I'm going to put them, but are, that governments have allowed a broken market to operate with weak regulation, and there's been an overinvestment in poles and wires, and retailers have engaged in what I would call price gouging. A bit like the banks. So maybe we need a royal commission into the energy industry. You mentioned the National Energy Guarantee. So on this Friday, change the whole landscape. This Friday, the federal government and state governments are meeting to talk about a National Energy Guarantee, which could completely change the landscape and potentially could destroy the renewable energy industry, or certainly hamper it significantly. In terms of facts and stats, ACCC, the Australian Competition Commission, released a report on electricity supply and prices inquiry back on the 11th of July. In that report, they say that their estimates are that 80% of cause of higher electricity prices are those factors that I mentioned earlier. Have nothing to do with green schemes, renewable subsidies or emissions reductions target. In fact, the largest single factor is the overinvestment in electricity networks, poles and wires. No more than about 5% of total prices in recent years is due to rooftop solar subsidies. And we had that very generous scheme where people were getting 60% feed-in tariff. It certainly pumped the industry and got it started, but perhaps it was too generous. Maybe that was one of the factors. But according to the ACCC, that only accounted for about 5% of total price rises. Just going back to the National Energy Guarantee meeting, there is financial modelling or modelling around by energy analysts Reputex, that actually indicates a more ambitious reduction target, and this is where I differ on this issue, of 45% by 2030 would actually lead to lower prices over the life of the scheme. contrast to the Turnbull government's proposal. The Turnbull government's proposal is emissions reduction target of 26%, which this modelling indicates would lead to prices rising to just over $80 per megawatt hour. With the 45% target, which is actually favoured by federal Labor, the modelling indicates that wholesale power prices would fall by a quarter to around $60 per megawatt hour by 2030. So, there's a lot going on. It's a complicated landscape. The National Energy Guarantee has complicated it further. I think it's important that we have this forum, but we also need to recognise that there's a lot already going on. We do have an item coming up later in the agenda in terms of the Local Government New South Wales conference in Albury. And I would probably like to see this council maybe move a motion in relation to electricity prices to go to that Local Government New South Wales conference.
Councillor Duffy.
Chairman, thank you very much. I'll be very brief, actually. Just to start, make the comment that this is a state and federal government issue. As councillors and as a council, I believe we facilitate issues, as we do with health, the palliative care and all these others, and parking and all those things. We do that, so we're right on the right money here. I find it offensive that the China take our gas and sell it to themselves over there cheaper than what we have to pay for it. And as I said, in the last 12 to 18 months, or not within the last 12 months, electricity prices have gone up 60 to 70%. But I read in this report here, the Gatton report, it says they've gone up 130% in 2 years. And it is a huge impact on businesses that are up and down the main street there. You talk to them, the three big things is their rent, their insurance, and their electric energy costs. And I heard Malcolm Turnbull make the comment, and we're talking about carbon targets and all those type of things there. We should really have a look at that and see how much we actually affect it compared to China and India and those real places there, and volcanoes and those type of things there. I agree with Malcolm Turnbull in some cases where he said, hey, we should be firing up our coal-fired power stations more and create more employment and create cheaper energy. I don't have a problem with it at all, and I welcome the forum, and I think we should actually take it on board and have a good crack at it.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. General reports 5.1.
Move it.
Statement of investments. Move Councillor Duffy as seconder.
I'll second.
Councillor McRae. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, thank you. 5.2 is the Local Government Annual Conference in Albury in October, Sunday the 21st of October to Tuesday the 23rd of October.
Happy to move it, Mr. Chairman, and I also I'd like to nominate myself, and also I'd like to nominate Councillor Hamley.
If it's
Anyone else?
Put your hand up if you wish to go.
Yeah, and anyone else that wants to go.
Councillor Duffy, Councillor McRae, Councillor Munro, Councillor Hamley. Yeah, just check dates and please get back.
Put my hand up subject to checking dates as well.
Why don't we put all your hands up and check them according to dates and let them know on Tuesday? Because I think very, very important here, the amount of times the people put their hands up in this chamber, I'm going to this and I'm going to that, next thing, bookings are made, can't go.
Can confirm I have checked the dates. I'm happy to go, and I'm happy to be one of the nominated delegates if that makes things easier.
Here's 2. 3, you're a confirmation.
Already applied for the leave, Mr. Chairman. Let me tell you, I've never missed once. I've been a lone ranger of a number of times.
No, but you can have other. You get 3 votes.
You got to sit with the clicker.
Mr. Mayor, can I just note that the registration, we've still got time to register. Registration's due by the 17th of September to secure an early bird rate, so we've still got some time to encourage people to, other councillors to consider if they wish to attend and check their availability. I'd also note in relation to the recommendation about determining any recommendations we want to put to that to the conference, that the deadline for those I think is the 26th of August. 26th of August. So I would like to propose that if any councillors have motions that they might consider putting, that we maybe set a 1 week deadline to get them to staff. Appropriate to be considered at the meeting on the 21st of August, and then make a decision as to which ones we want to move forward.
Okay, all familiar?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just confirm, will you be attending? I missed the list of who was going. Did you put your
You
hand
weren't
up?
paying attention to when I
I
put my
wasn't,
hand
I
up
apologise.
twice.
Thank you, I didn't write it down.
5.3 is organisational structure.
It was a resolution passed in relation to that.
We haven't
We
voted.
didn't have a seconder on that.
Favour?
We didn't a seconder on that before.
Mr. Burdak. Point 3 is organisational structure.
Chairman, I spoke about this at the thing, and I'd probably like to defer it if I could. Something that I discussed it about with the budget, starting the budget early, waiting for a timeline to see where we could make savings. Made any adjustments to the rates? We haven't reduced the rates for businesses that are going through a tough ride and things like that. So we maybe need to make savings. I'm just wondering. It's the same with the next one that's following. I think we need a little bit of time to work through these things there, and especially with the budget, where we need to ask the treasurers to say, listen, where can we save funding in this?
We have a seconder.
That's just my thoughts on what the situation is.
I'll move them. Sorry, I think we did have seconders on that side of the chamber.
And I thought Councillor Romano.
Councillor Hammond, was it? Move it, thank you. Rightio, and
I'll
second,
second it.
Councillor.
I think it's already been moved and seconded.
We're just trying to find out who the seconder
I'm
is.
happy to
Councillor
second it.
Nugent, is that okay?
I'm happy to second it.
Is it you, Councillor Romano, that seconded?
The original, when it was moved.
So mover and a seconder, thank you. Now, moving amendment,
Move amendment, yeah, that we defer it.
but you need a seconder. Lapses for the due of a seconder. Councillor Mileta.
I'd like to speak against the amendment if I can.
There isn't one.
He hasn't got a seconder.
Well,
Right. Who wants to speak for it?
I'll speak to the motion in a very obscure way. I'd like to congratulate particularly the events team, which sits under business development, under corporate and commercial services, the excellent organisation of the Mayor's Cup debating last week on Wednesday the 1st of August. There were 4 schools in attendance. Orange High School were the final winners. They competed against Orange Christian School in the final, but Orange Anglican Grammar School and Kinross Uluru School were also in attendance, and particularly the teachers who supported them. It was great to see so many good debaters in the room, as of course is normal practice here in the chamber. But I think particularly the manner, the matter and the method shows a really positive future for Orange, very strong. They were all debating on matters related to local government. I would like to congratulate all involved, particularly the staff who were involved as timekeepers, also as adjudicators, but particularly the events officer and her hard work. It was interesting, we've spoken previously in a meeting about how we get more diversity in our council, how we are more inclusive and represent our community. And I think the future leaders, it was very apparent in that debate that the future is in good hands with great diversity of our young people
Councillor
represented.
McRae, are you talking to this motion or?
I am, 5.3, commending staff and this fantastic structure that we
This
have.
is a very obtuse way bringing in
Thank you,
It's
Mr
got
Mayor. I
nothing to do
believe I
with
have
this
learned a lot in the last 10 months. Thank you very much.
Okay, all in favour? Aye, against. Thank you. 5.4 is register of delegations.
Move the motion, Mr Mayor.
Second that.
Councillor Nugent, second, and Councillor Whitten. I had one question here, but I can't remember where it is. Yeah, okay. All in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Duffy.
I just wonder whether they're moving the second or second amendment that we have a small committee to look at the register of delegations and also to look at the policies committee, policies of council. We had a policy debate here one other time as a thing, but I don't think we really went through them one at a time to fully understand them. The request.
go with this, and if there's something.
Yeah, how about we go with this, and if a group of people want together and files. All in favour? Thank you. 5.5 is a strategic policy review. Move in a second. I've just got a couple of questions, but look, one was in here about the use of social media and so forth now, I think it was. I have concern in there. Where's the cut-off between someone linking something to their friend on Facebook, LinkedIn, or what all the different names are, WeChat, and where it crosses the line it becomes a council issue. Councillor is a friend of mine, Councillor McRae, and I put something on Facebook, or she put something on my Facebook. Where does council, where can council come in? But I'll take that on notice if you like.
Look, I can make a general comment. I've had a discussion with Mr. Redmond about the need for a social media policy for all council staff. So that's something that we'll start looking at. And
that's been worked on. Oh, thanks, dear. Okay, yeah. I think the mover was...
Sam Romano.
Yes, Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of minor comments, and I did try to speak to Director Mr Maunder about this today. But in relation to disability services support provision, a couple of very minor things. The National Disability Insurance, there's a word Insurance Scheme Act. The word insurance is missing from here. But and also in relation to the reference to standards, New South Wales Disability Service Standards, my understanding is that they're being largely superseded by the new standards under the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission, which came into effect on the 1st of July. Fairly minor things, and perhaps we can pick them up in this strategic policy review next year, but I just thought it's worth a mention.
Yep. And look, sorry, that was in. Oh, and in the policies, I just have one under the fraud and corruption prevention policy, and I discussed it with Burdak this afternoon. In the writing of it, it's got back to the general manager to report certain things, but I think there should be another line in there too that the mayor did a right. But I'll leave that to Burdock to do the wording. Yeah. Okay.
We'll bring something back.
All in favour?
Aye.
5.6.
That arising, Mr Mayor, from that, it's just, and I may have missed it.
What page, mate?
I'll declare an interest, but I don't see anything in here to do with cyber fraud. Human fraud, but there's cyber fraud's the big one now.
Yeah. We should have I think you brought this up before and I spoke with you about it. We should have a policy should be developing a policy on cyber fraud, because we have an obligation, don't we, to immediately notify. We suspect
breaches, of any personal acts in the business that could ratepayers basically, or councillors.
So, any work on it?
Once again, in terms of the review of policies, since I've arrived, cybersecurity has been identified as one of the issues developing a policy framework for. That one, as you'll appreciate, will take a little bit of time just to get it right in terms of the system.
Your question, Councillor?
Oh, sure, yeah. So the director's got it already gone on.
Okay, 5.6 is the Woodward Street, Wentworth Lane. Councillor Hamling. Councillor Miletto. All in favour?
Aye.
4 times that one, it'll be a good one. 5.7 is the proposed air quality monitoring station.
Move the motion, Mr Mayor.
Second it? I'll second it.
Just want a clarification, something here. Was it Jaguar identified back in that report? I think it was it?
Yes.
Is it the most appropriate spot
Yes.
in town? Why can't we shove it on top of a building somewhere?
No,
You know
because
what?
the Office of Environment and Heritage have the expertise in this area. Looked at a number of sites, and that was their third site. And in the report, mentions about 5 or 6 different reasons why they came to that conclusion. You might have missed that page.
I just looked at the
No, you
yeah.
might have missed that page, but it came, there was 5 or 6 reasons they come to the conclusion that's where it should be.
I just looked
And
at
they
the-
have the expertise. Yeah.
I know they've got expertise. I just looked at the reason why. I mean, we're reducing this the green space around Jaguar Oval where a lot of kids play.
I thought about that too,
They have a
but
bit of
won't
growth
this
there
just
too.
be an excellent
We could be playing
opportunity
there ourselves soon.
to play with education, learning about the environment and air quality, temperature, relative humidity. This is going to be a complete package. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question. When these measurements are undertaken, because we have a government entity or a statutory body who's doing this measurement, will we have any control over, once they say that, okay, up that area, there's too many people with wood fires, are we going to have a say of the outcome, or are they just going to drop the hammer and say, you got to do that?
Through Mr. Chair, no, it's not a punitive exercise. This one, I believe, it's information gathering. That's not their intention.
Because I
The
don't
regional
want to go
location.
headhunt after all of those people up there who may have wood fire.
No.
That's not this. That's not
Certainly
what
not.
this is about, is it?
No,
certainly not.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to respond to that question, my understanding it is it's provision of information to the community. It'll be effectively live streamed on a website. People will be able to check it themselves. If it's a high pollution day and they're asthma, they suffer from asthma, they'll be able to take appropriate precautions. So that's my understanding of the purpose and how it'll be.
And Mr. Chair, it might enable us, if I may, to issue warnings ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the other one, if you read in the report there, I don't think they're too far away of having a reasonably cheap thing that actually does do pollen counts accurately, where I think that'd be a good service that we could give in Orange, because a lot of people do suffer from so forth and allergies to pollen down the track, that could be part of it. All in favour?
Aye.
Again, thank you. And I look forward to Councillor Duffy being at the official opening.
Kicking
Go
football.
through the roof, all that hot air.
Green space.
Right. Closed meeting. The General Manager will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of City Council. I extend an invitation to any member of the public present at the meeting to make a representation to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government Regulation 2005 General, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following businesses of a kind referred to in section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act, and should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and the public. The items to be considered in closed are 6.1, lease of Shop 3, Lays Arcade, and 6.2, tenders for bitumen ceiling. Reason for the confidentiality, the items are classified as confidential under provisions of section 10A, brackets 2, bracket C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business.